We'll start the session in about 4 minutes. Well, good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Mixed Matters Field Series 101, a little bit more of an in-depth look at the Mixed Matters approach. My name is Jeff Jocelyn. I'm the Digital Ag Lead for LG Seeds. Joining me this morning is Craig Pearson, technical team agronomist that covers the eastern Kansas and Missouri, and Scott Dugan covering Nebraska. And Scott, you can probably fill in more details than that. You guys want to say hi?
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, everyone.
We'd like to thank you all for joining us. We should have some growers, dealers, and LG Seeds employees here with us this morning from across the Corn Belt. Our goal today is to share our progress in product development. That's where everything starts, is around the products. But we also want to talk about a new way to ensure these products are placed on farms considering every field's unique set of circumstances. One of the statements that we've been consistently making is that one thing we know for the next 5 years, these are going to be kind of tight times with economics, and we've got to make the most of every field. I think we could just say that really that's what farming is today, and what it's going to be, and that's what we want to make sure we do. So our goal is to come back to, we want to make sure you get the information to get the most out of every field, out of every acre. And what we're wanting to do is to make sure we do that for you with LG Seeds products, given the way that you farm. So what we're going to start with this morning is an example called the Productivity Challenge. And basically, it's a study from Iowa State University using Story County, Iowa as an example, where they've tracked attainable yield as well as results going back to 1950. Obviously, you can see the line stops just a couple years back from our 2020 date. That first line you see there is the attainable yield they've calculated for each year of that period, saying this is really what the seed had the capability of doing. And then you can also see then that we actually had actual yield exceed that a couple of times, match up to that a couple more times, but the vast majority of the time we leave that gap. And you can see that that gap remains relatively consistent. It bops up and down a little bit depending on where we were at in those extremes, but it's always there. And basically what that's telling us, that difference is leaving dollars on the table. So what we know is that all of this is due to three primary things if we funnel it all together, and that is the genetics that we started with, and their potential, but it's greatly impacted then by the environment, both being the soils that we're dealing with as well as the weather that impact the soils and that genetics. And then last but not least is obviously the management, and that is what the plans are done by the growers, what plans are built, how they anticipate dealing with the weather, and how they respond or react to the weather and the environment they're dealing with the soils and the weather both. And when those things are not in balance, we're not going to hit that attainable yield. And when they are, we can get much closer to it. And that, of course, would be our goal. So one basic premise we want to lay out here is that to maximize farm productivity, we need to consider each field individually to try to make sure we hit that attainable yield for that field. So we'll give you another example here, and we are painting with broad strokes, but we want to take a look at this being a farming operation. And you can see the fields that we've made up here. And typically in the past, and this would include LG Seeds as well, when a seller comes out to a farm to offer products, he comes out with a predetermined subset list of products that he wants to recommend, he or she wants to recommend. That's all, not 100% of the time, but that's been the majority of the time. What we tend to have happen is that we are recommending products that are either yield winners from the plots that we've been dealing with in recent years, maybe the new products that we have, maybe it's products that particular seller feels more comfortable with because of risk aversion, that if I'm going out on a farm for the first time, I want something that I may not have as much top end, but I don't have to risk about the other side of it. In any of these cases, whatever that bias is that they're coming from, which could obviously be the amount that they sell, they're coming with a limited amount of information. They don't know everything about the operation before they offer recommendations, and that's what we've typically done in our history. Other sellers that come out tend to do the same thing. There can be overlap in products. It might be a different choice of biases that they come to the farm with that leads to what they recommend. But in almost all these cases, they're still recommending things without complete information about the farm. And if they're offering that to that operator, to that grower, then he's got to decide what to do with those fields that perhaps he didn't get exact information for. He either wasn't able to supply it to the provider didn't have time to deal with it, and here's what we're recommending as a whole. Well, guys, we'd like to change that up. With this mixed matters approach that we're going to talk about this morning, we don't want to have those question marks anymore. We want to be able to say, look, we understand every field. We're going to give you good advice on every field, and we can do that practically. That this isn't just an ideal, that it's something we can actually pull off every year and anticipate every year's genetics, environment, and management better than what we currently do. So how do we go about that? So we're going to share a short video with you here. Bear with me as I switch screens to that. And this is just under 3 minutes, and then we'll come back together and explore this, and the TTAs will take over and really walk us through some detail in doing so. So here we go.
The perfect hybrid mix for every field, every year, on every farm. This is the philosophy behind Mix Matters, a bold new commitment to farming from the team who means business at LG Seeds. What sounds like a simple plan for success is actually a complex mix of science and technology that carries LG Seeds, our star partners, and their customers into tomorrow. Through innovative research and hybrid technology, a uniquely diversified product line, dedicated local expertise, and intuitive tools, we are ready to work smarter, dig deeper, and respond faster than ever before. We are so committed to Mix Matters that we won't just do it right, we'll do it best. Thanks to 3 key components designed to minimize risk and maximize potential. 1. Mix Makers. This is an exceptional line of key hybrid products mixed into every custom blend to boost overall seed performance and produce higher yield results. 2. Fast Track. Straight out of research, Fast Track products are too good to wait any longer. After rigorous testing and top performance, they are Fast Track for commercial availability so farmers can reap their rewards. 3. Mix Matters Tool. This custom app allows farmers and star partners to quickly and conveniently determine the right mix for every field based on existing data and location-driven information. Through these 3 key components and the core Mix Matters philosophy, LG Seeds is reshaping the future of farming. Every field counts. Every team member makes a difference. And every mix matters. Let's get to work.
Okay, I hope you found that video interesting as well as encouraging. I hope it intrigued you a little bit. And I hope you saw that there were some pretty large claims there that we're making, and we want to back those up as best we can, and we're going to do that for the next few minutes here this morning. So let's talk a little bit about the Mix Matters approach and what it is. And we would start with that it does expand how we've been doing things in the past, but it focuses in on one thing that we often talk about, but sometimes we haven't maybe put the emphasis on understanding how we do that on every field as best we can, and that's product placement. If you think about it, guys, the products you choose and the fields you choose to plant them on, that's where everything starts. And everything for your entire year on your whole operation starts there. So this approach expands solutions with unique germplasm, that we're answering answering questions and solving problems with these solutions that are unique to LG Seeds. That with these new products that you're hearing about with Fast Track and Mix Makers, that we expand the supply by identifying high-performing products earlier, and that we go back to the field with a better seed plan and expand its potential. And so doing so, we expand the opportunities for overall farm productivity. That's really what we're trying to do. And we're also expanding that customer service because we'd really like to turn that relationship into more of a two-way street instead of those examples that we use of sellers coming out and offering advice and making recommendations. And we'd like to come out and understand how you farm and understand what your challenges are, understand what your goals are, and then provide you solutions to that. So if we want to take a look at this in a little bit of where we would go with this, we'll talk about Mix Matters itself. And that is the approach that says, how do we deal with the portfolio we have? So we've got a block here that we've laid out that there's a couple of columns that probably every company we deal with, seed company we deal with in the industry would say they have. And that first column would be everyone. That is their primary products, what they sell the most of. Those are the products that are typically high performing and have a wide area of adaptation. They're usually the high volume within that company, and they usually come with a marketing premium. So LG Seeds would clearly have products that fall into that category, as do almost every other company that we'd have in the marketplace. And then another column that is probably similar to everyone is the support products, or more of a targeted product that are usually familiar to customers because usually they tend to be older products, although not always. They do run at lower volume, and they tend to address more specific management advantages. In other words, they'll be a little bit more directed as to what they're used for or where they're being used for the environment they're being used in. And quite often they may be value priced. But you could see that by bringing up these two columns, these two areas that you guys, yeah, we definitely know that. We got our race horses and we got our workhorses. We could use that general terminology. That leaves a gap in between, and that's where we'd like to offer the idea of the mix makers as being new solutions, but products that are a high volume already. For products like every other thing that we try to develop in the seed industry that have high yield, we're always going to be pursuing yield, but we're also really pursuing the agronomic characteristics, and Craig and Scott will explain more about that in a few minutes. They may be on a very wide adaptation like the primaries. They may be a little more regional fit like the support products. And we'll talk a little bit about local areas that may have some products that are not on the national list. But the bottom line to it is these are new solutions that take us in an area, and we want to be able to use those in a way that brings them to bear and have impact faster than what traditionally companies have done in the past. Having said that, we also really need that very latest and greatest, that leading edge of the yield curve. And that's where Fast Track shows up on the right-hand side. Those products may be primaries and they may be mix makers, but they're going to be products that start off small and get big very quickly because of their performance. And we'll explore that together a little bit here. So we'll start with the mix makers. So this is our national list. It runs from 88 to 118 days. There's 13 products in here. They range from conventional all the way through the AgriSure traits. You can see with that number of 265 that these are high volume. So these are pretty new products, but they're already geared up and ready to go at a high volume. They are unique to LG Seeds, and they have these key agronomic things, this yield plus that we spoke about, and whether they fit on a wide or more regional basis, that depends on the area. We also might have some local teams that have products they consider mix makers that aren't on this national list. And with that, I want to open it up to the experts. Scott, would you like to make a comment about one of these products for your area?
Yeah, the 109-day, the 59C66 has been a high-performing product in our lineup for the last 2 years. The last 2 years in particular being different types of seasonals, weather patterns, coming from a cooler, wet period last year to a hotter, drier period this year. Going through both seasons and still performing at a high level, and I think it's going to have another a great year this year. Another product that I guess is fairly new to our lineup, the 112-day, the 62C35, has really responded to the heat this year and is going to, I feel, have an excellent year in terms of yield and overall agronomics with what has been thrown at it in terms of wind and disease pressures. So those two in particular are ones that can be on both spectrums. I think they can be a mainline product and also those support products as well. So they fall into both categories.
Thanks, Scott. Craig?
Yeah, I'll call out one more. The 110-day 60C33 is looking to have a really nice year this year. It's showing that it handled a lot of heat stress and drought stress throughout the summer. We went about 3 weeks without any rain here in July, and it just stood there and absolutely did nothing until it caught a rain, and then it went ahead and flexed out, filled out real nice. Big girthy year, standability and fall appearance is real nice with it as well. So.
All right, thank you guys. So you can see that mix makers is a big part of how we move forward and how we move forward differently. Let's talk about the Fast Track hybrids as well. So these are that latest and greatest, the newest things. You can see 8 that are on this national list for this year, and you can see that they're all conventionals. From what I understand, that won't always necessarily have to be the case, but the point to it is that we're not waiting on traits to say, I want to bring something new. I can't bring something new until I have a trait. On average, we're bringing these products to the marketplace usually a year earlier than what we traditionally have. But we have some things in place that help us do that. And that is that these things have to be head and shoulders above what they're being compared to. And when that's the case, they are unique germplasm, they are unique products, then we're going to bring them to the marketplace faster. Traded versions will be coming along. This is a smaller volume. This is a much smaller volume on these products than that 265 that you saw, 265,000 units you saw for the mix makers. Craig, let's start with you on this list. Anything you'd like to highlight?
64C20, 114 day, the last one there on the list. This product is going to have a phenomenal year. Excellent flex, plant height, plant structure, plant health is everything you could ask for out of a corn plant. Handles heat and drought stress extremely well. It'll be exciting to see this as conventional, but I think it'll be even more exciting once we get traded versions of it. So.
Great.
That's the one I want to call out.
Scott,
Yeah, the 111 day right now is getting tested for food grade. The thing that's unique about the fast tracks is that when we can bring these a year or two earlier to the marketplace, we have that non-GMO market that's really starting to expand and really gained traction out there. So this gives us a whole list of additional options in our portfolio to basically have the choice for the growers.
great guys, thank you for that. So now we're going to move to that third component, and that's the Mix Matters tool, and what is it? And what I'll basically do here is start with what is it, what it does, and what it doesn't do, in just some simple basic terms. In terms of what it does do, it creates customized seed plans quickly. And as I made a point earlier about placement being a key word, quickly is also the key word here. The issue with all the tools that we have and all the work that we have to do is the time we have to get it done and the effort it takes to do so. So the first thing this tool does is address that very specifically. The second thing specifically is the field itself, both the management of the field and the characteristics of the environment for soils and weather. And then finally, starts out by engaging customers by starting with them first and asking them how they farm before we offer advice. So really addressing everything we've talked about in our examples earlier. What it doesn't do is it doesn't do an advanced edit of boundaries. Scott will show you how there was a merge tool where we can combine common land units together quickly, but it doesn't do advanced editing. It doesn't create the variable rate script itself, and it doesn't offer crop progress and what we're familiar with the timeline in Advantage Acre. But the good news, folks, is that all three of those capabilities are still in Advantage Acre, and the Mix Matters tool and Advantage Acre are a two-way street. We pull information from Advantage Acre to Mix Matters in case of fields, and we can send fields and seed plans back to Advantage Acre, and we'll talk more about that. So we have the ability to look at this field as this product, this tool, excuse me, not as a precision farming tool, but as a tool designed to help us create a good seed order right up front. And the bottom line to it is it considers the maximum amount of information with the least amount of user input and time. And what I would argue is, or offer, is that, well, I'll argue that's the way I tend to be thinking, but it considers more information than we typically have in the past. Even when you got someone like a Scott or Craig right on the field with you, farm with you, and they'll explain that. But it offers that with the least amount of input and time. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Scott, get my screen switched over here so he can take over. And there you go, man.
Alrighty, can you guys see my screen then?
Yes.
So thanks, Jeff. The big thing that the way that I look at the tool is that it is an interactive seed guide. You think about these seed guides that come out, a lot of guys take value in them. They look at the ratings, they look at everything. The thing about the seed guides is usually they come out a little bit early, usually a half a year at least in advance. And then you have those same ratings throughout the whole year. What this tool really does is it incorporates the same things that you see in that seed guide, but it's interactive and it's specifically designed to interact with your fields and the area that you reside in. So instead of going across the whole Corn Belt, we are specific to the TTA regions and the team regions that the tool resides in, or the zip code that you enter in there. So, and the great thing about that is that we can go in with these ratings or rankings and change that as the year progresses or how we see fit. So each year gives us different filters on how to judge things. And although we know a great deal about these hybrids, sometimes we can't be exposed to what Mother Nature can really deal us. So in a certain year, we can get these green snap scores that really tell a tale on a hybrid and get a better hold of it and change it as we go throughout the year. So this tool, like I said, it's interactive with that, and I think it's something that is unique to the marketplace. So with that being said, let's dive in. I'm going to just show some screenshots regarding the tool and how it basically operates. The first one is the login. So Jeff or Craig, can you guys just confirm that you see my login?
Yes.
So if you have an Advantage Acre account, you can use that same account to log in, or else you can log in as a guest. Right now, I'm just going to use a personal account that I use for our farm, and I'm just going to go through the process from that perspective. So once you sign in, if you do have an Advantage Acre account, you can pull all that information over. All the field boundaries will be basically pulled over into the tool itself. Two things I want to point out is in the top right corner, there's a settings button. If you press that, you'll get these 4 options. Basically, it's an account to where you can change your password, basically personal information as far as your address. And then there's a reports. So as you go through the tool, if you create reports at the end, you can see different reports and what they're named at the end. The support will be how-to videos, and then we will eventually be able to switch back and forth from Advantage Acre on that last one. The other one is in the left side. This is kind of like an index or a status index. There's 5 sections of the tool itself, and there'll be a red check mark here and a green arrow here as you fulfill these. And I guess if you want to go back, if you get to the 3rd step and you want to go back to your field management, you can click this button and click that field management to go back into the tool or previously sections of the tool. So starting off for your iPad, your iPhone, your Droid, you can allow your location services, or you can enter in your zip code. Once you enter that, you hit continue. And then this is the field management. So this is the first section of the tool itself. What this is doing is this is applying about 10 to 15 questions to all your fields within your farm. Now, this is the foundation of what the tool is built on, but I would encourage you as we get to those individual fields that you specifically detail those fields individually so that the tool can be more, I guess, accurate. But for our farm, we typically take 230 to 240 corn yields off this, and these are usually, slider buttons. So as you slide this left or slide this right, the yield will increase or decrease. So then you hit continue. Our soybean farm yields are right around 70. And then our corn traits re-rotate, so we have above ground only, and then we do have corn on corn to where we do above and below ground. Our
Scott,
soybean, yep.
if I could just jump in here, I had one point of clarity to what Scott's talking about here. On that last slide, I would slightly disagree with choosing 2 traits. What we're wanting to do here is always remember time. So the idea behind this is choose what you do the majority of the time, so that on the majority of your fields, so you edit less when you go to the specifics that Scott will walk you through. So here, if we have the majority of the fields that are above ground only, even though we would do some above and below as well, I would select that at the field level because that's less information to change on every field when the majority of the fields would be above ground. And if you kind of keep that in mind with all the questions that Scott walks through, that will simply mean that when you go to field by field, you have less material to edit, which takes less time. Thanks for letting me jump in, Scott.
Yep. Good point, Jeff. So soybean traits, ours are all herbicide resistant only. Our corn tillage is typically conventional. And then our corn maturities are 105 to 112, majority of them. We do have some silage that we'll cut that we'll put next to the farm site or the buildings that will go to 115 day. Soybean maturity is 2.2 to 3.2. Our corn nitrogen management, we do fertigate a lot, so a lot of our applications are after V6, and we typically go to a 1-to-1. And again, this would be our nitrogen application, scrolling that left to right to increase or decrease. Our fungicide use is based on weather scouting and hybrid. And then we do not have any drainage, or tile drainage, excuse me. Our irrigations, 90% of our fields are irrigation without water limits. Right now, I'm going to pretend that we don't have a whole lot of green snap concerns. So I'm going to put low just to demonstrate, I guess, a part of the tool later on. This is fairly new that we just kind of added in the last few weeks. Although the tool doesn't have specific rankings on soybeans just yet, it does recommend a couple soybeans that are pretty basic. Jeff, do you have any other insights on the soybean recommendations that are going on right now?
Yes, Scott. So you'll see these new questions that Scott's pointing out, the one here with diseases, they've been added, so they're in the tool now. So there are more questions in the tool. Those are active. The tool is not making precise recommendations like it is with corn, as Scott and Craig will walk you through, but we're only a few days away from doing that. We'll initially have a kind of a universal rankings in place done by Logan Vaughn, our agronomy manager. And then Scott and Craig and the other TTAs will modify that like they have with corn and get that caught up with obviously plots coming out and everybody busy right now. This will take a little bit longer to do than it did with corn, but within a couple of weeks, this tool should be offering the same kind of seed insight that it does for corn. Thanks, Scott.
Yep. And then lastly, soybean seed treatments. We basically do fungicide, insecticide, and inoculants on all our soybeans. Planting spacing, typically we're drilled. We will do some row depending on the year. So this brings us to the second part. This is the create field section. Initially, you'll zoom into either your location services provided by your device or else the zip code that you entered. You'll have these CLUs that are available, and then once you click on one, it'll ask if this is your field. And the thing that's unique about this, at least for me from a seller's perspective, is that once you click on that field, if I'm working with a customer, you have the option to bring in similar field characteristics or associations from farm market ID. And what this allows us to do is basically bring in very quickly fields that the grower might farm that are associated with that field, that you can get all those fields and be accounted for at one place and not forget any fields that you could possibly have a sale on or need, I guess, seed for. Jeff, do you have anything additional to add to the farm market ID?
Guys, I would just say, Scott, that this is a service that we've purchased. It is available from USDA information, so it's public resources. It's also using satellite imagery, and it's also pulling both public and private information from individuals that, of course, they've agreed to. And basically, what it does is it tries to match CLUs, which would make up fields, together as farm operations. It will leave a field off from time to time, and it will add a field that's not there because of changes in ownership. But the point to it is how fast it brings it in. To bring in, say, 45 fields will take about 15 seconds. To bring in over 100 fields will still be under a minute. There's no other tool we've had before that will let us bring so much in so quickly, and we talked about that earlier. That's what this tool is designed to do. Thanks, Scott.
Yep. So part of that, I guess, farm market ID, I select yes. This is our farm operation. The thing that Jeff's alluding to about some fields that might not be associated, these fields to the south are primarily pasture. So in this instance, I don't want them associated with my row crop system and this tool here. So I'm going to actually click on the field itself, and then they pull up these, I guess, these trash bins. If you wanted to delete any ones that come from farm market ID that are not associated with the field, you can basically eliminate those by clicking that trash can, and then we get the row crops. So I left this little piece here because it is a dryland piece that we do farm, but this, in a matter of seconds, as Jeff alluded to, I have my whole farm operation with boundaries in the tool itself. So if you want, you can actually send these to an Advantage Acre account. For this particular example, I just selected no. And now we're on to the third part. This is the select crops. So with the fields that we have created within the tool, we can designate our crops. We have corn, soybeans, and other. So if you click on those, they'll change from red to gray or gray to green. associated with the crop type. So these red ones are our corn acres, and then the gray ones are our soybean acres. We'll hit click. Now this goes into a little bit more detail. As you can see, it goes into field 1. If I'd like to name that a specific field name, I can click on the field itself or the field name, and you'll see how it highlights here, and I could change that information. You can do the same with crop type, maturity, estimated yield, traits, basically everything that we've gone through from the farm level early on. If there is something detailed different about this field that I want to change, this is where you can do that. And I would encourage you to do that to make sure that the tool is as accurate as possible. So in this instance, we call this field Denny's, and I've changed that name on there. Again, you could change anything associated on this line that pertains to this field. This would be field 2, and this is going to go through each individual field, adjusting those details as needed. For this instance, I just changed the maturity. I turned it up. I actually increased the yield and the nitrogen rate for this field only. Soybeans, as of right now, you can do the same, and we'll get into those recommendations as well and how you can add those, but you can address the soybean details as well for each individual field. This lastly is a summary. You can click on any individual field and go through it all together and not, I guess, seeing the field picture. This is kind of a summary page that you can do all that on one page. So lastly, this is, well, not lastly, but the fourth section is the seed insights. This is the recommendations that come with the field. So for this Denny's field in particular, this is recommending 5618, 61C48, and then there is another 59C66 that would be a third option. So for each field, it will give you 3 options or 3 recommendations. The first one will be selected. You can select multiple, yes, by just clicking on the select button, and it will turn green like this. And then you can adjust the percentages and the populations here. Also, if there's multiple, trade options, I guess, Jeff, when you intervene on the trade options, when I did above ground only and then I did above and below ground, if you want a specific trait, you can see how this double pro is outlined. You can click on this and then the outline would switch over if you wanted it to be a smart stacks option. So, and then it will give you units as well. So some things that what is specifically being addressed within that field is that tool is taking the soil types of that field and the drainage and is applying it to the rankings that we have for those hybrids. So how it does with drought stress, how it does with wet feet, how agronomically, how is that drainage going to affect those products in particular. So not only that, but then it looks at the weather pattern that comes with that as well. Jeff, am I forgetting any additional details as far as the backgrounds of what it's pulling?
No, you've got it good. It's pulling the rainfall in from April through September. It brings it in 4 different ranges to take a look at. So it's looking at next year's rainfall, even though we're here now. And the other thing that it does, Scott, is if we just leave the initial yield goal in at the farm level and do not change it field by field, it pulls the National Crop Commodity Productivity Index in so it can adjust the fields in relationship to each other. Once you put an individual yield goal in by the field like you did in your example, it overrides that. And that would be it.
Nope. So this is field 2, 60C47 is being recommended with 5618 as a secondary. And at any point, if you don't agree with the recommendations, if I go back, you can actually hit the trash button. It will remove that option, and then you will get this little plus sign here. This will basically take you to our inventory lineup, and you can select different products if you wish to use a product that was not recommended on the tool. So you still have those options. Those are the top 3 that come with that field or that's being recommended. but you can change that just by clicking a plus sign. And then you would have, I guess in this case, this is a soybean inventory because we're on a soybean field, but you would have all your corn options for that. So if you wanted to select this, in this case, we're going to select 2444s, add selection, and then it would be on that field. So,
Scott, I would add in there that that list will be still based on the parameters that you've chosen. So if you have a wide range of maturities, it'll be a bigger list. If you've said, I only want to look at 110 to 111 on this field, that could be a relatively short list. It may only be one more product than your top three. So it just depends on your parameters of what you've chosen.
Yeah, and your traits. So you would only be pulling in conventionals if conventionals, which would limit your options as well. Lastly is the seed summary. Basically what this is doing is just going through all your fields and totaling up your units for the whole farm. Let me just point, before I go too further, I'm just going to go through hypothetically and change just a little bit of those questions that I had at the beginning of the demo regarding GreenSnap. So hypothetically, let's enter in high concern for GreenSnap, and going back to that Denny's field that I was mentioning. In that case, just that little different input is recommending basically 62C35 and 59C66 on that recommendations because of the way our parameters were set for the field. So that GreenSnap concern, changing that is changing our recommendations on the rankings of those products. So I just wanted to show that that slight change in input can affect the recommendations. But back to the original. So we have this seed summary here. We can actually hit generate report. And then we enter in our field title. I just have Dugan Farms here, and I want to create or hit view report. This will give us a quick summary as far as what we see here. We can filter this by field, by seed, or by crop. And then if we email this report, we can basically include a cover page, a seed report, a field report, and then individual field maps. I kind of call those planter maps, and then a product profile sheet. I'm going to send this to myself, and then just a little comment. I believe we still need whatever it is. You have to put just a TID snip in there just so that it operates properly. Jeff, is that still accurate?
Yes, unfortunately, guys, even if it's gibberish, you need to put something in there. The programmer said we want to have a message, so that is required, unfortunately.
So then once we have the things that we want, we can hit send email. This is an example of the email that will come to the grower or to your customer or to yourself. It's a PDF with the comments that we stated in that little box. And then this is what you get. You'll get a cover letter with your seed report, seed report, field report, and then those individual field maps. So, and then lastly, we have the profile sheets that would be associated with that that report as well. So it's a nice little summary. It's a seed plan that what could, if you did it as detailed as the tool is doing, you could spend an hour or two very easily, can be summarized in a matter of 15, 20 minutes. So the tool itself saves not only the dealer, but the customer a lot of time, and the accuracy and the efficiency in what it does is the, I guess, this sauce or the special ingredient within the tool. So again, that's www.mixmatterstool.com. If you haven't checked it out, I would encourage you doing so. So with that, I'm going to switch the presentation back over actually to Craig with Jeff kind of mixing in there.
Perfect. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. Yeah, Jeff's going to take us through just a couple slides here real quick, and then I'll finish with the product discussion here, the last few minutes of our presentation here. And Jeff's going to take us through what really makes this tool drive and produce the recommendations that it's spitting out. So with that, Jeff, take it away.
Thanks, Greg. So guys, if you remember at the bottom of this left corner of this screen, you see that it says crop production practices. That's where this tool started. So it starts, even though it's an app, it starts with the human connection, that it asks you how you farm. That's important. Then it brings in automatically, without any time required, any effort required, or any ability to go in and say, what does the data tell me? What do I do with the data? It doesn't ask for any of that. It simply brings in the soil types and weather that Scott shared and we walked through together. And this is something that, while we all know it's out there, we tend not to bring in on every field. But in the case of what Mixed Matters does, it is every field. And then finally, it brings in the product research. That's what Craig's going to talk about. But it doesn't bring it in automatically as this is what the results are, and it ciphers the results. There's still the human interface again, and that is the TTAs like Scott and Craig that go in and look at the information from what we call deeper dive, that look at the PCR research information, that look at the other plots that they deal with in the field, and then they take and look at the parameters that you have answered and that we brought in with the soil and weather and said, this is what I would recommend if I was in this particular situation. This is what I'd recommend for the product. This is what I'd recommend for the seeding rate. And they do that every time. The difference is, although we're human on the start and the back end of this, very human, the tool itself removes the bias. Now it's just looking at what we say we believe and making the same consistent advice every time. So that's where we get the recommendations from the Mixed Matters tool that are in the Seed Insight section. Craig? Going to advance, we'll go to this last slide. And this is what they're looking at essentially, and Craig will walk through this in more detail, but they're considering everything that you said for goals, for challenges, for what Advantage Acre has said for soils, for drainage, and for weather, and what the products recommendations are from these guys about how do these products respond to that. What is a need in a particular situation for some fungicide? What population should we run at for this product in this area if 250 bushels is our yield goal for this field? Best, like Scott talked about with nitrogen management, whether it's irrigation or coming from post applications, when's it going on? How does this hybrid respond to the type of nitrogen available for rain fill or early growth, and the amount that's available? So all these things are what's being considered, but being considered quickly by every field. And Craig, I'll turn it back to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Jeff. Okay, real quick, while we'll finish up here with a little bit of product discussion. And one product that we called out in the tool was 62C35, and we kind of want to dive into what goes on kind of behind the scenes and why is that product being recommended by the tool. And we'll go through some product details and discuss that here in the next 10 slides or so. First off, I want to start off by showing you kind of where we're talking about zones. So what we're really focused on today is a little bit of zone 5, and pretty much, so you start in central Nebraska, northern Nebraska, green, all the way down into the purple. Those are the zones that we'll be talking about. So zones mainly 6, 7, 8, and 9 today. Okay, when we look at maturity, wins by maturity. So, you know, we're looking at 112 days. So anything that we would have had in a plot, we're going against the plot average on this. So zone 6, 7, 8, and 9, you can see compared to the plot average, this product performs very well. And then percent wins by maturity. So this is what this is telling us, is how many times did this product actually win that particular plot that it was in against the mean of the plot. So 62C35, as you see, you know, we're batting 50% or better in almost all of our maturity zones that we're talking about today. And then we're talking about the regions that we're going to be focused on today. So we're going to be talking about the West and the High Plains. You know, we take products into the West and even into the High Plains and down in South Texas there. We have to do more with less with some of these products. You know, we don't have the deep soils that they have out East. And, you know, what management practices are going behind this to really make 62C35 pop. And then yield by region. So we'll focus on the left two here. The High Plains in the West, you know, 5 bushel to 2 or 3 bushel advantage, and then percent wins by the region. You know, in the High Plains in the West, we're looking at 57% and 62%. Very, good product. This product handles heat early, handles stress early, and that's what's really making this thing drive in Nebraska and Kansas right now. Is it really just sits there. It can take all the heat that it can get, and that's what's really making it go. And then against selected products. So we're looking at the plot average here, is your red line there, your regression line, and then we're looking at the hybrid yield itself here's on the left. So, you know, as you see, we get into the higher plot averages, 62 C35s, you know, running up there at 150 bushel to 250 bushel. It's running right there with the plot average. So we can take this product into our high yield environments, add some of our nitrogen practices that we're using. Where green snap's a concern, you know, it spit this product out just due to standability and plant health. And then yield by plot level. So we really want to take this product in our environments at 150 bushel to over 230 bushel. That's where we really get an advantage from here. And then as you can see, it's reflected in the percent wins by the yield level. Really, we want to take this into our better environments, our better managed environments, and place this on those types of acres. And that's what the tool is going to tell us to do. So if we're shooting for, you know, 140 bushel yield goal, the tool is probably not going to recommend this product. So when Scott types in 240 bushel plus, it has no problem recommending that. And that's coming from the TTA. So Scott and I, we rank this product to handle that type of environment. And that's what the tool is trying to tell us. And then yield by planting day. So this kind of goes back to likes heat early. Even though we plant it maybe in April 1st, it still handles that early cooler temperatures. But when we get past into May and later in May is where we like to see this product go and accumulate those GDUs a little bit quicker. And then percent wins by planting day. This is where it really kind of shows the data is, you know, 53 to 56%. We're comfortably winning in all of those planting date ranges. And then we'll call out the main thing with 62C35. So it has the anthracnose gene in it. Very good rating for stalk diseases and very good tolerance to green snap. As you see, we were comparing the green snap rating to 62C35 and 5618. And as soon as we flipped that in the tool, it made that recommendation like, hey, green snap's a concern. Let's go ahead and throw 62C35 in there if it really is a concern. And then on the left, you see the stalk disease rating. The standability of this late season intactness is really strong, and it's just a really good, tall, healthy plant. So yeah, with that, next step. So go to mixedmattertools.com. You can download the app on the App Store on iPhone or Play Store on Android. And simple as just creating an account and getting logged in, or you can use your current Advantage Acre account. And it'll pretty much walk you through everything to get a customized plan for your farm. With that, anything else from Scott or Jeff?
Scott, you go ahead and I'll finish.
No, I was going to check and see if we had any questions.
Good.
I don't see any, so nope. Jeff, take her away.
Okay, so guys, I hope you found this time interesting. Obviously, we've hit the highlights and we've covered a lot of information, and we try to tie it back to what these guys do to put this together. But there's still more to uncover with the tool. And essentially, what we'd say to you is this: remember, this is a tool. It starts with human information. It finishes with human recommendations. It's a tool that puts that together. Will it do something that an expert like Scott or Craig can't do? No, it really is taking what they do and just taking the bias out of it that we have as human beings. But what it is doing is that it's making them more effective and more efficient, because they can't know every field. They can't cover every farm. There's no seed dealer or grower or salesman that can take and look at all of this information for every field and every farm and get it done in a reasonable time frame. The kind of work that we're talking about here, if we have any size farm operation, would take days. And what we're talking about is this tool lets us do days and hours, hours into minutes, and minutes into seconds. So it really can get us specific to every field. It can really give us advice that, again, we can choose what we want to do with that advice, but advice that's based with insight, both from the product side, as well as how you farm, as well as what the soil and weather is actually doing. And that combination of all three things put together is something that typically as human beings, we just can't physically get done across all our fields, every farm, every year. And that's what this tool is trying to give us the opportunity to do. So hopefully you find that as encouraging. We appreciate you joining us today. Check in with your STAR partner or with your SAM. If you have questions, contact your TTAs, and obviously reach back to LG Seeds. I'm happy to help in any way that we can to help you build a better seed plan for your farm to reach that productivity that we started this conversation with. And with that, guys, I guess we'll close. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.